Okay, we are finally on, and I am dark. It should be above that. There we go. So this is our new little scene here. We got a web, and then we're gonna have who's this? We're gonna have Xcode also in another scene. In the study scene. My camera's off. Where's the study scene here? Just gonna rename this. And then this one's a little bit awkward. There's gonna man, we can't ever have the same thing set up properly here. But that's fine. We'll sort that out when we go deal with that later. Starting. Just do one more thing here. What? Ugh. Are you kidding me? Now I see how that works. Alright, there it is. We're not gonna BRB, but we now have a BRB. You have that here too. Cool. Alright, well, let's start off. I just want to start with this video here. Whoa. Because I wanted to watch it.
Is over 100 video sessions diving into nitty-gritty details on everything that was announced at WWDC 2025. It's overwhelming. It's a lot. So I'm going to help you out, and in this video, I'm going to point you to what I believe are the must-watch sessions for iOS developers. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Obviously, the biggest change that
I swear to God, every single one of Sean Allen's videos are sponsored by Squarespace.
Is going to have to deal with this summer is the new Liquid Glass design language on all Apple platforms. So the first two sessions I'd recommend are Meet Liquid Glass and Get to Know the New Design Systems. Because they kind of go hand in hand, Meet Liquid Glass is like the high-level overview, big picture, surface level description of what's going on in this new design language. It's liquid and fluid, interactive to the touch. It bends, reflects, and refracts light. UI elements are also more rounded to fit nicely with the rounded corners of the hardware, so it looks super cohesive. So if Meet Liquid Glass is the high-level introduction, the session called Get to Know the New Design System goes a little bit deeper into these ideas and concepts. Both of them are a must-watch before you start trying to adopt this into your app, and I would watch one right after the other. After you watch those two, you should move on to build a SwiftUI app with the new design.
Oh, I saw this video,
actually. They also have build a UIKit app with the new design and build an AppKit app with the new design. So whatever you're working on, whatever you're learning, watch that one. And these videos go even deeper into building with the new design, the core concepts. Things like tab views, sheets. What are the best ways to implement these floating toolbars, and how should you group and space them effectively? And how using the built-in components, things like sliders, pickers, toggles, will get you all this Liquid Glass behavior for free.
My bad.
And also how you should handle the new recommended search bar location, which on the phone is now down at the bottom. So again, this session will get you started converting those foundational elements, again, the tab view, the controls, toolbars, into Liquid Glass for your app, whether that's for SwiftUI, UIKit, or AppKit. Just watch the appropriate session. The last session I'll recommend for this Liquid Glass redesign is elevate the design of your iPad app. Now, the iPad got Huge changes this year, and it's going to be a lot more Mac-like. You can have multiple resizing windows, and to close, minimize, or expand those windows, you get the classic Mac red, yellow, green buttons. iPad apps can now have a menu bar, so all of this stuff is not buried in the settings somewhere. Again, that's very Mac-like. I would say the iPad got the biggest change this year. So if you do have an iPad app and you need to convert it, you just absolutely have to watch this one. But I wanted to share this. I have such a soft spot for building UI for the iPad. I just find it to be the most fun platform to build for, even though, at least in my apps, it's one of the least used. But something everyone uses are app icons, and app icons are getting the new glassy look as well. And there's a new way to build them. And sessions come in, say hello to the new look of app icons, and create icons with Icon Composer. So say hello to the new look of app icons, tells you about this new layered, glassy, depth look, and create icons with Icon Composer shows you that you don't have to be an amazing designer creating this glass-like design in Sketch or Figma or whatever you use. Apple basically gives you this depth and glass for free. You put in layers into Icon Composer of your flat design. Again, there's no glossy finish, there's no translucency. And then in Icon Composer, you give it that glassy finish. You can dial up or dial down the translucency to really make the app icon look amazing and right at home in iOS 26, macOS 26, whatever.
So interesting. So I could just put any layered image in there. Do I have any images on my? Might try it later.
So everyone's going to need a new app icon. Xcode is the tool we all use on a daily basis. And the main thing Xcode is getting, finally, Swift Assist. Now, I haven't had a chance to play with this yet because it requires the new Xcode 26 beta and macOS 26 Tahoe. It's kind of a long name, but I wasn't ready to put Tahoe on my machine yet because it's still beta 1. So I haven't had a chance to play with this personally.
I'm not putting it on.
The videos make it look great. Of course they do, right? But it's a sidebar AI companion. Maybe you're using a third-party one at the moment, but it will have all the context of your code base. It's going to know Swift really well, obviously, and you'll be able to ask questions to it, have it help you build features, document your code, comment your code, all sorts of amazing things to make you way, way, way more productive. I'm excited to finally get Swift Assist because if you've been working with any third-party AI tools, you know the rapid pace of how they're improving. Like it's crazy how much they'll improve over 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Maybe that's wishful thinking that Apple will move that fast, but just having this built right into Xcode and then seeing the pace of everything improving, I'm just very excited.
I definitely would use that Swift Assist, is it? But I would not use it in ChatGPT because I do not trust ChatGPT. Like, watch this. Let's go to ChatGPT. Which AI would you say is the most efficient, most accurate, and best with context when it comes to coding in general and also specifically coding with Swift? But let's tell it to ask that to itself. I don't know if it's gonna search. Ha! Top tier. Maybe 4.0 is better? I don't know. I haven't tried 4.0, right? Claude is great at context. It says it itself. Let's search the web for this. So it's saying GPT-4o is the most specialized? Really? With Swift? What's the most specialized programming language Swift GPT 4.0 is trained in. Saying Swift is Python. Top tier specialized. Python. Maybe because there's more stuff about it. I don't know.
Get this into Xcode and start that process. So like I said, we all use Xcode, so that makes what's new in Xcode an absolute must-watch. My next recommended must-watch videos are the 4 foundation model videos. You can see them here. I recommend doing Meet the Foundation Models framework, then deep dive into the Foundation Models framework, then explore prompt and design safety for on-device, and then finally do the code along once you've kind of learned.
I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Select the window. Then I need to take a screenshot of, what was the other one? Oh no, that's fine.
Model videos is arguably the biggest deal to come out of this WWDC. It's a framework that gives developers access to Apple's on-device large language model, or LLM, that is used with Apple Intelligence. Now, will this on-device model be as powerful as those third-party server models? Of course not. But there are some key trade-offs to consider on why having an on-device model has a ton of advantages. Well, one, it's on-device, so you're not going to a server somewhere, which means you don't have to be connected to the internet, which could mean it's faster. It can be used offline. It's more private. It's also a first-party framework from Apple. That means you don't have to have an account with a third-party LLM that also has an API key that you have to manage and secure. Hopefully no one steals your API key and runs up your bill. And you don't have to worry about your customers using AI so much that it runs up your AI bill. It's all free on device from
great.
Apple. But
Honestly,
again, the
so
trade-off
great.
for that is it's a less powerful model than the state-of-the-art server-based ones, because again, it's running on device, kind of common sense. And another advantage is that you can mark your types generable so that the LLM will know to use your custom types in your app when it generates its response. So yes, while not as powerful as those third-party server LLMs, there's still a ton of advantages. And you have to remember that we're developers, we're online all the time. We see people pushing the limits of LLMs. What can they do? But 99% of the population, they just have a pretty simple problem and a pretty simple app that this on-device LLM can handle with ease. So I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity for us developers to implement the on-device LLM and vastly improve our apps. So you absolutely must watch these 4 sessions, start brainstorming whether it's a new app or how you can implement it into an existing app, because I think this is the biggest deal to come out of this year's DubDub. I also recommend watching Optimize SwiftUI Performance with Instruments, because one of the biggest knocks on SwiftUI is that it's not performant. Well, I think a lot of that is user error, and to be fair, we didn't necessarily have insight into what was going on. Well, hopefully now that'll change now that we have this new SwiftUI tool with Instruments. It can help you diagnose view bodies that are slow to compute, so you can get in there and fix it. There's a cause and effect instrument that shows you what data are causing UI updates. So if you change one state variable and it causes 17 redraws of the UI, that'll be pointed out to you so you can go in there and fix it. So yeah, if you're interested in improving the performance of your SwiftUI app, which we all should be, again, another must watch.
I might put a screenshot on that too.
The SF symbols are the best thing ever invented. Ever. And if you're still using custom icons in
Speaking of, I need to download SF symbols right now. I don't actually have it. SF symbols 7 beta. I'll take it. Give it to me.
your app, what are you doing? Because every year they get more and more powerful. So my next recommended session is what's new in SF Symbol 7. And this year we get a new draw on animation when an SF symbol appears into a view. And it can also be used with magic replace. When you're replacing one symbol with another, one will draw out, the other one will draw in, adding a high level of detail and polish to make your app look very high quality. This what's new in SF Symbols session is
I need this one as well. Did I ever screenshot that?
one of my favorites every year, and this year didn't disappoint. And lastly, this one's for the indie devs. You need to watch.
I want magic swap.
Very high quality. This what's new in SF replace when you draw on
magic
animation
replace?
when an SF symbol appears into a view, and it can also be used with magic replace. When you're
I can put that in my crypto app.
Another one will draw out, the other one will draw in, adding a high level of detail and polish to make your app look very high quality. This what's new in SF Symbols session is one of my favorites every year, and this year didn't disappoint. And lastly, this one's for the indie devs. You need to watch Optimize Your Monetization with App Analytics. And basically, App Store Connect gets a ton of monetization-based analytics to help you make more money from your apps. The first big change is that it's right there in your main app view in App Store Connect, which is a lot more convenient than going to a completely different view. There's more filters on the data, so you can break it down even more granular. You can also see download to paid conversions, earnings per download with benchmarks against similar apps. You can break down the earnings by each in-app purchase, earnings by territory. You get cohort analysis on various categories and filters to really dive into your data and break it down. You get all new subscription metrics, active plans, paid plans, monthly recurring revenue. And then you got some basic churn and retention statistics, and you can see which subscription plans are the most popular. So if you're making money from your apps or trying to make money from your apps, this is insanely valuable data. And if you're here staying up to date on the latest and greatest that WWDC has to offer each year, I know you're building great apps, and I think...
There we go. That's it.
Up our Git skills. In the last video, we covered just the basics of how to commit. And in this video, we're going to talk about staging and stashing. I think people do get them confused sometimes, so we're going to be very deliberate in understanding the difference between staging and stashing. So staging is correlated to committing that we did in the last video. So why we did committing first. So every time you go to commit changes, you first have to stage which changes you actually want to include in that commit. So in the last video, we staged all changes. In this video, we're going to talk about how to stage only some of the changes. So if I have a bunch of changes in my code base, but I only want to commit some of those changes, I will only stage some of them and leave the rest of them unstaged. After that, we're going to talk about stashing. Stashing is slightly different. It is basically, I have changes in my code base, but they're not ready to get committed at all. And so I will stash them, basically putting them on the side for later. So last video was committing, this video is staging and stashing. Hope you guys are as excited as I am. Let's jump in Xcode and stage some changes.
We are learning Git and source control, and we are already cruising through the playlist. We are connected to GitHub and Gitkraken and Xcode, and we've written a whole bunch of commits. Look how cool this is, guys. We've written so many commits. We haven't really built anything, but we are on our way to being Git experts. So far in Xcode, every time we've written a commit, for example, I'll add another one here. Let's just add in a rectangle. I will Option Command C. And every time so far, we've clicked Stage All. And now in this video, we're going to talk about firstly staging and then later stashing. So let's imagine that we're writing a whole new feature, lots of new code, right? Maybe we're working in this file. We're also working in this file. Maybe we want to change this out. And we go to commit. And we recognize maybe I forgot to commit my last couple of sets of changes. I now have so many changes in my code base, but I don't want to put them all under one commit. Or maybe I'm working and I know the home view is actually ready to go, but the changes in my content view are not ready to be saved down yet. So this is when staging comes into play. So before we commit, we have to stage the changes. And we get to decide which of the changes we actually are going to want to commit into this commit. So in this example right here, let's just pretend like I don't want to commit this rectangle, but I do want to commit this home view. If I click Stage All, it's staging all of the changes, making all of these changes ready for commit. But if I come to just this file, I could instead click over here and click Stage Changes just in this one file. So now this file is not staged, but this file is staged. And I can see the difference even better if I click on Unstaged versus Staged. So only the staged ones will be committed. And if I unstage this, and there's nothing staged, I actually can't click this commit button up here because I need something staged in order to commit it to the repo. I'm going to X out of this quick. And so right now I have this change on my content view. I added a rectangle, but let's go into the home view and let's also make another change. Maybe at the top here, I have a text that says hi. And then maybe up here, I add like a @state private var title of type string instead of equal to a blank string. All right, so now I have two separate changes in this file here. So let's click Option Command C and I can see the changes, two separate changes here. If I click on this over here to stage changes, it's going to stage all of the changes in this file. Or I can come in here and just stage the changes for just this and not this. So this is, again, just really, what do you want to commit right now? So let's say maybe I want to commit this change, but not this change. So I can come up here, stage change, and now I can add a feature, add title to home view. Commit. I'm not going to click Stage All now. Let's click Commit. And now if I look at my Gitkraken history, I can see those other changes are still pending. They're still work in progress. But the one thing that I did stage is now committed. So if I come back to my code base again, I look at the home view, there no longer is a blue indicator on the at state because this has been committed and this has not. Also, while we're in this view, we can also stage as we go. So I can stage from here, and you'll notice this little blue indicator gets fully dark blue. If I unstage, I can see it's like an outline now, and now it's fully staged. So I can also stage from here, and now if I Option Command C, I can see this is already staged, whereas this one is not staged. I can go to the unstaged and I can go to the staged. Other ways I can do this is if I'm in this file and maybe I make a bunch of changes and I want to stage everything in this file, I can also just go to integrate and click stage all changes in this file. So stage all changes in this file. Now these are both or all staged. I could also integrate unstage all changes from this file. So now these are all unstaged. I could also stage all changes across all files. So if I click this, now even the changes in content view are staged. And we can see here that both content view and home view have been modified. Whereas if I integrate and unstage all changes from all files, these are no longer filled in blue because they have unstaged changes. They've been modified, but not staged. So now we're back to our starting state. So this is the gist of staging. We can also see it in GitKraken. If I was in GitKraken, I have all the changes here and I can stage this file or this file and then only commit the files that have been staged. Let's come in here, let's create a feature and let's name it. What do we do here? Let's just say, this is gonna be a bad commit message, but let's just say add rectangle to content view, tweaks to home view, commit, cool. While we're here, I don't really care about these unstaged files. Again, GitKraken is not ignoring them like Xcode is. So let's just click this discard all changes, just so that we're back to our starting state here. Those don't really matter. They're gonna pop up automatically. We're gonna ignore them in a couple videos. So it doesn't matter if they're popping up for you or not. And let's jump back into our project here.
Okay.
And let's do one more review here. So maybe I'm going to make this change. I'm going to delete this. This will say hello world. Let's go back into Option Command C. And I can see all of my changes here. What we've learned so far is when we are ready to hit a checkpoint and save our code, we're going to add a commit. But while we are writing code, there are cases where maybe we wrote so much code, but we don't want to put it all in one commit. Or maybe we have this part ready to save and this part's not ready to save. So now we can stage only certain changes and then commit only certain changes. And so the stuff that we don't want to actually commit, we leave unstaged. The stuff that we want to commit, we move it to the staging area so that it is ready to get committed. There's one more case here I want to talk about is what about the case where we are doing this, where we are working, but we actually don't want to commit any of our changes. So maybe I did all these changes, but I don't think they're actually right. Maybe I made a mistake. Or maybe I want to actually switch back to a different branch. So in a couple of videos in the future, we're going to talk about branching, but there are times where we switch off of the main branch onto another, basically a version of our app. So you could imagine if I go back to this image here, maybe user 1 is working in one version of the app. User 2 is their own version, user 3 is their own version. If each person is working independently, they're probably working on their own branch, and then they're going to merge their changes into the main branch later. So again, if I look at this image here, this person is working on their one branch, and this person down here is working on their own branch, and this is the main branch. And so you do your work on this branch over here, and then when it's ready, we'll merge it into the main branch. We're going to cover that in the future. But what I want to get at here is there's times where you're doing your work, and then maybe something else comes up, and your manager says, hey, stop working on this, and switch over to what this person's working. So what you're going to do is switch from this branch down to this branch. But the problem at that time is going to be, what if I have all these changes in my code, like all these changes, but they're good, but I'm not ready to actually commit them, right? So maybe I'm working on this, I'm in progress, but I'm not ready to actually save. I'm not ready to actually hit a checkpoint. What should I do now? Well, you could just discard all of your changes. Where is it? Discard all changes. You can discard all the changes in one specific file. So if I come in here, home view, I can discard all the changes in this file, or I can discard changes in every file. So let's discard all changes. So this warning comes up here. Once you discard your changes, these changes are getting deleted forever. This cannot be undone. So if I wrote a lot of code here that was very, very precious, I didn't want to rewrite it, I wouldn't want to discard it. But if I wrote this and this is crap and I don't care and I made a mistake and I want to just go back to the last commit, I can actually discard all changes. Let's discard them. Now we're back to whatever the last state was in our last commit. But let's go ahead and change that up again. Hello world, and change this to screen 3. And now maybe these changes are actually good, but I'm not ready to commit them yet because maybe there's more things I need to do on this feature. It's on the way, but it's not ready to be staged and it's not ready to be committed. We can actually come up here and click stash changes. So stashing basically means just save this locally for later. So if I stash changes, it is not the same as staging changes. Staging is these changes are ready to go and I'm going to commit them next. Stashing is I'm going to put these on the side so that I can then later apply them back to my code base. So let's stash these changes. And when you stash, it's sort of like a commit message here. Put in whatever you're stashing. Made some changes for home view. Stashes are generally just for you to look at. So you can be really descriptive in here on what this is, but then stash those changes. And when you stash them, those changes are now saved, but your project has reverted back to the last repo state. So the same way when we discarded all the changes and went back to this state, this is that same state here. And if you look at the changes in the source control here, the stash is not in our source control at all. You can't see that message. If I look at GitKraken, I can see this little blue thing popped up here. So this little blue indicator is actually a stash. And again, this is why I love GitKraken. I can see exactly what these stashes are. So these stashes are separate from where I'm working right now. So if I create another change in here, let's come into the content view and let's say subscribe now. Cool. And I Option Command C. Let's commit. Let's add a feature. Let's say update subscribe text to subscribe now. And let's put was subscribe. Let's stage all these changes and commit these changes. When I look at GitKraken, I can see that it kind of jumped over the stash changes because these stash changes are not actually in my working project. They're just saved in a stash on the side. That's what these changes are. So I use these stashes. Firstly, if you need to switch branches because your team said, go do something else and come back, and you're not ready to commit your changes, stash your changes. It's just a quick little save. It can't hurt to stash them. But I also use this for if I have like a really complex maybe bug or feature that I'm not sure the best approach. Sometimes I will go through and I will build out a feature and then I will stash it. I'll restart and I'll write the code again and then I'll stash it. And then I'll write the code again or I'll stash it. And now I have the 3 different stashed versions of my feature. And so I can always revert to them or know which one was best. So stashing is really like your best friend. It's like your second little side stash of how to get your code back. So I can come in here and just apply the stash whenever I want. I can also delete the stash. And in Xcode, I can also come into our navigator and I can go into my repositories and I can see these stash changes come through here. So stash changes. So I can click on it. I can see what these changes are. And then I can right click and apply the stash changes to my working project. So let's apply them. Now this is asking us if we want to keep the stash after we apply. So if I'm going to apply them and then never need the stash again, I can uncheck this and apply stash. But most of the time, I think I would rather just have the extra copy because it doesn't really hurt. So I'll keep the stash after applying and apply the stash. So now in my project, let's go to the home view where the stash was. I can now come back and see the exact code that I wrote. It's not staged, but it's right in my project again. So if I had switched to another branch and then I switched back and I want to get back to where I was, all I need to do is apply the stash. And it's the same thing here. So now these changes, we've taken the stash and applied it to where we are. And so when I look at the changes in my current file, I can see here that the changes are applied. They're unstaged, but they're applied. And this is now separate from my stash. We clicked do not delete the stash. So the stash is still here as well. If I clicked remove the stash when we applied it, this would be gone. So I'll come in here now and let's just say, let's apply it. Let's just say feature, add, hello, world text. Let's stage these changes. Let's commit these changes. And now I no longer need this stash. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to come to my repos and I could just right click and delete this stash. Let's delete it forever. We don't need it anymore. Come back to our content view and we can see when I get cracking, the stash is gone and we are back. Cool. Before we finish up here, actually, let's just write a few more comments here. So let's just write here, cloning, clone. Cloning is copying the repo locally. So you copy, when you clone a repo, you're copying basically the entire Git versioning and project to your local computer. When we commit, we save a checkpoint on our current branch. Right now, our branch is the main branch, but we're going to talk about branching in a future video. We now have learned staging, which is prepare changes for a commit. And we've learned stash. We should call this stage. Let's call this stash, which is save changes for later. Cool. All right, that's it for this video. Hope you guys are starting to feel a little more confident in Git and source control. We're getting there, but we have a lot more to go. In the next video, we're going to actually start talking about pushing and pulling. So again, if we look at GitKraken here, I can see that the remote repo on GitHub is still down here, and my local version, my local repo is way up here. So we're out of sync with the remote repository. And in the next video, we're going to talk about pushing and pulling to that remote repo. Thank you guys for watching. As always, my name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.
Nice. That was not too bad. Staging, stashing. Next is push pull. Oh wait, shit. I like to just go through the playlist like this. So I'm always on this, like, this list here.
Yo, we are back. What is up, guys? My name is Nick.
Quite a few videos he has here. This has become literally a master at Git.
Thinking. We're learning Git and source control. So in the last 3 videos, we cloned a repo, we committed to the repo, and then we talked about staging and stashing inside that repo. So if you don't know what any of that is, watch the earlier videos on that playlist. They build up to this one. So far, all of the changes that we have made in our code base have been local. So remember, we have this idea of a remote repo and a local repo. We have the version on our computer and the version on GitHub. And so far, every time that we've committed our changes, we have committed them locally. So the local version has that history and understands those changes, but the remote version does not. So in this video, we're going to talk about pushing and pulling. So pushing is taking our local changes and pushing it to the remote repo. Pulling is doing the reverse. It is taking the changes from the remote repo and pulling it down to our local version on our computer. So this video will help you get much more comfortable understanding when to push and when to pull. I would say most of the time when we're working projects and we're committing our changes, we usually just push our changes immediately. So 2 videos back when we committed those changes, we still haven't pushed them yet. Most of the time I would commit and then push immediately. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go. We just haven't pushed it yet because we're still obviously learning. But for the rest of this course, we are going to now follow this flow of making changes, committing changes, and then pushing them up to GitHub. So this video is just an introduction on how to push and how to pull. And then over the rest of the course, we're going to continually do this every single video, so you'll get really comfortable. So with that said, let's jump into Xcode and push our changes.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking. We are in a playlist where we're learning Git and source control. And if you're just joining, you should probably watch the earlier videos in this playlist. So far, we have created an account on GitHub and GitKraken. We've created a repository and we've cloned a remote repository. We've learned how to commit. We've learned how to stage and unstage as well as stash. And now we're going to look at pushing and pulling. It's all really starting to come together now. Let's write some quick notes here, what we're about to learn. So push is going to be, let's call this, I want to use the word push, but without using the word push, let's say send local commits to remote repo. And then pull is fetch remote commits to local repo. So I brought up this earlier where we have my computer and we have GitHub. Earlier in this series, we cloned the repo. So the first time, if you want to access the repo, you need to clone it so you have a version of that on your computer. So cloning is like the one-time process of, let me copy all the files and get this system set up on my computer. So first you clone it. But after you clone it, and while you're working throughout the day and throughout the week and the months, people are making changes. Maybe you're making changes, maybe other people are making changes. And we no longer need to clone because we already have our local version. Now we just want to push and pull. So this arrow is pushing and pulling. So when I want to send something from here, from my local version to the remote repo, I will push it to the cloud. When I want to get changes that have happened on the remote and bring them back down to my local, I will pull them from the cloud. So we push to the remote repo, we pull from the remote repo. So let's come back in here. Let's commit this before we move forward. Option Command C, let's just say clean, updates to documentation and stage and commit. When I go and look back at my content here, let's go back to the repositories tab here. I can see this little number came up. So the main branch is the branch that we are on, but for some reason we are up 18 points. What's happening here? Up is describing ahead of the remote repo. We are 18 commits in front of the remote version. So if I look at GitKraken, I can see the remote version again is down here, and I'm guessing there's 18 commits to where we are at right now. So this is obviously back in time, and this is current. So we are now ahead of the remote repo. And you can imagine if we were behind the repo, if there were changes on the remote that were not locally, we would be behind the repo. So this arrow would then be a down arrow, signaling that we are behind the current branch in the remote repo. So this 18 though is specific to the main branch here. So we are only working on the main branch right now because I'm trying to keep it simple. In the next video, we're going to talk about branching. And in terms of being behind or in front of a branch, we are talking about the branch in general, not a specific commit. So this main branch has two versions. One version is local, one version is remote. The local version is here, the remote version is here. So we are 18 commits ahead of the main branch. So the first question is, so the first and obvious thing is, all right, well, how do we sync these up? Well, generally when you commit, after you commit, you also want to push. So there's a button in GitKraken called push that you can click right here. But I'm going to do it in Xcode because this is obviously so easy, you guys can figure it out. But in Xcode, after we commit, we basically just integrate and push. It's going to ask us, where do you want to push these changes to? This automatically is going to be on the branch that you're currently on, which is almost always where you want to push to. So generally speaking, we want to push to the branch that we are on, and we'll click push. Just like that, that's simple. We now see the number went away over here on the left side because we are on par with where the branch is on the remote repo. If I look at GitKraken, that tag is no longer down here. It's back up here. So I can see here the computer representing my local version as well as my profile there is the icon for my GitHub account. So both the local version and the GitHub account are both at this commit here. So they're on par and we're good to go. When I go and open up GitHub, if I refresh the page real quick, I can actually see the last commit that affected each of these files. So if I come in here, I can see the last commit. We didn't do any commits in this folder. That's why it still says the initial commit. But content view, the last one was this clean. Home view, the last one was this feature. So I can see here that this is now getting updated as well. So if I look at my source control, I can see actually there's 20 commits in this main branch. So I'm on the main branch. We can switch branches here. We don't have any other branches right now. And this actually has 20 commits. And if I click on it, I can actually see all of the commits. So this is where your commit messages were important, right? Like other developers are going to now see this and they're going to see all of your commit messages. So in a future video, we're going to talk about squashing and merging because there's times where you can basically make crappy commit messages like this if it's only going to affect you and you're not going to put that into the actual repo. So there's a time where you might want to do this just for speed. But if it's going to go into the remote repo, you probably want to keep it clean where you have like feature commits and things like that. We're going to talk about merging commits in a future video. Just want to show you guys that this is here. And our whole commit history is here. So if I were to delete this from my computer and then reclone this project, it's going to have all of these commits saved to it already. So that's the cool part about version controls. I can see all the changes that I've made in any of these and I can go back to any of them at any time. We're going to talk about going back in time in a future video as well. But so we've learned how to push. Let's jump back into Xcode. Let's do one more. So the common flow of what you're going to do is make a change. Let's just delete this. Maybe you want to change this. I'm going to Option Command C. Let's make this a feature, rename, subscribe button. Let's stage all. Let's commit that change. Let's push that change remotely. So that's the flow most of the time you're going to do. Stage, commit, push, stage, commit, push, stage, commit, push. And just like that, we can now see that it has happened. I'm going to do it one more time and just watch GitKraken as I do it, just to show you guys. So here, let's come back in here. Let's add in a Swiftful Thinking. Let's do a bug, maybe fix Swiftful Thinking text. Let's stage it. Let's commit it. I can see here it committed locally, but it's not on the remote version. And now when I push it, it's going to push to the remote version, and Gitkraken knows that both are now on this same level here. So that's what pushing is. It's simple as taking my changes, pushing them up, literally pushing them up to the cloud to GitHub. Now we understand pushing, but what about pulling? What does pulling actually mean? So pulling is the reverse. Pulling is there is data on the repo that I've not yet copied to my local version. Myself or somebody else has committed to the main branch on the remote repo, and I don't have that yet locally. So let's mimic that real quick. I'm going to open up the repo, and let's just go into maybe source control here, and I'm just going to add a file. Let's create a new file. Let's just says testing.swift. I think that's what we can do. And then in here, just put some comments, and I'm going to commit changes. So let's do a commit message here. Let's say feature, add testing file. And it's going to ask us here, do we want to commit to the main branch or a new branch? We haven't done branching yet, so let's commit directly to the main branch. Let's commit those changes. And now when I look at Gitkraken, off the bat, it looks like nothing has changed, right? Because the local version of source control does not know that those changes happened in the remote repo. So if I look here, I can see the testing file was added to the remote repo, but there's nothing about that here. That's kind of weird. So before we actually fix this, let's go into our project. Let's write some code here. In Swiftful thinking, let's change it back to Swiftful. Let's option command C, and let's try to commit this. Let's say feature, fix, Swiftful thinking, text again. And let's stage it. Let's commit it. And let's push it. Push to main. Whoa, what is this error? The local repository is out of date. Make sure all changes have been pulled before you can push to this branch. So we know exactly what happened. There was a change on the remote version that we did not have on our local version. So let's close this before we can do this, and let's look here. So once Gitkraken synced up, we can now actually see it better. Again, this is why I love Gitkraken. I can see here my main branch, what I was trying to do is up here now, right? But the remote version is here because the remote version of the branch got this testing file, but my version of the branch never got it. So now I committed on this local version of the branch, basically bypassed or it missed this file here. And so when I tried to push this version up to GitHub, GitHub said, wait a second, buddy, you're not pushing the same history that I have, right? My history shows this file, but you're saying that this file never happened and this file was last. So we can't have that conflict happen. So GitHub is saying you need to resolve that conflict before you can actually push and update this branch. In a future video, we're going to talk about branching. And then after that, we're going to talk about merging. So we're going to talk about how to resolve conflicts in a future video. Before right now, what I'm trying to get at is your local version can be out of date with the remote version. And if I look at the repositories here, I can see here, my local version is one commit behind the remote repository, and as well as one commit ahead of the remote repository. Kind of crazy, kind of confusing, but it's exactly what we see here, right? So we are missing this commit, and we've added this extra commit. So what I want to do is actually pull the changes from GitHub first. So I'm going to come into Xcode and do it first in Xcode. Let's try to integrate and pull. Let's pull from main. And we can see here that it automatically merged those changes into my local main branch. So it automatically pulled those changes down and merged them from GitHub first. So I'm going to come into Xcode and do it first in Xcode. Let's try to integrate and pull. Let's pull from main. And we can see here that it automatically merged those changes into my local main branch. So it automatically pulled those changes down and merged them into my current version. So now this version has both this commit as well as this commit together, and they seamlessly, we didn't have any conflicts, so it worked together. And now when I try to push this now, it has that whole history. So I can push it back up to the main branch. I see it now, both are pushed to the remote. I'm gonna go back into GitHub, and I should be able to see it now that this is my last commit, that merge commit, and it's been added. One more time, what I'm gonna do is actually go back into source control here. I'm gonna add a file. And just by the way, I would never actually be adding files this way. You generally only add files from Xcode, but let's say another test file.swift, and let's try test and commit these changes and commit these changes. So again, we're back in this place where we've made that commit, but our local version does not know about it, right? So oftentimes, every time you sit back down on your computer, you want to make sure that you are up to date with the remote version. So eventually here, Gitkraken has synced. I can see that it automatically happened. But if I'm on this main branch and I haven't made any changes yet, so I'm in line with my current version, now I actually want to pull. So give me all of the updates on this branch that were remote updates and pull them into my current history. So again, if I click on this branch, I can see the entire history and all of the commits. And this is the last commit. I don't have the commit I just did on GitHub. But if I integrate and pull it, let's pull it from main. And now we've updated our local version with the remote changes. So now we're back in line again. All right. So again, this video was just pushing and pulling. It's pretty straightforward. Pushing is taking your local commits and pushing them to the cloud or to GitHub. Pulling is the reverse, taking the remote commits and pulling them back down. And source control, by default, will not let us push or pull if there are conflicts. So if there's conflicts, we're going to have to resolve the conflicts before we can push and pull and merge and do all that fun stuff. All right, I hope this is making sense. Right now, our local and remote are in line together. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to talk about branching and merging and all that fun stuff. Thank you guys for watching. As always, my name is Nick. This is Swiftful Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.
Okay. Not bad. What is going on here? Okay, I need to make a call real quick, so I'm just gonna um throw up some music while I do that. And just quickly organize something. It's actually app related. I'm gonna start working on something new soon. And it's a proper like app that I'm building. And I'm working with my friend on a new project basically. So it's gonna be very exciting. But I'm not. This is not really my announcement here. It's just like I'm letting you know what I'm doing. I'm gonna start doing it. I'll make an announcement on Discord as well. And then if you guys are interested in watching that, I'll try and I'm gonna be building it in public as well. So I'll just be building it on stream, of course. I just need to call him though, my partner. So I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, I'm back. Had a mini meeting with him just now. Mini meeting. That's gonna be fun. I'll talk more about the new project later. Right, it's already 11:30. Holy brother. Let's go through one more video here. Oh shit, this is a 30-minute video. How long will it be if it's...
And we are back. What is up, everybody? We're getting into the bread and butter of this playlist. I'm super excited. So this playlist is all about learning Git and source control. And so far, we have cloned our repo, committed to our repo. We have staged changes, we have stashed changes. And then in the last video, we learned how to push and pull changes. One thing that we have not yet done that is crucial to version control is branching.
20 minutes?
So in this video, we're going to talk about branching, which is literally taking our code base and branching it so there's literally another version of our code base. The main version and the branched version are going to exist simultaneously. So by having a second version of my code base, I can now make a bunch of changes in that branch that don't affect the main version. So I can go build a feature, I can experiment with some code. And
I used to watch things like this at this speed in uni because, man, some of the people would... This guy doesn't, but some of the people would just be so slow at talking.
when I'm ready to take those changes,
Like, it's better to... It was nicer to watch a replay of a lecture than it was to watch them in person.
and actually put them back into the main version of my project, I will merge them in. So first we're going to branch to a side branch, and then we're going to merge back into the main branch. So this video is going to be all about how to branch and then how to merge. Just like everything else in this playlist, we're going to learn the basics in this video, and then we're going to use this for all of the videos upcoming. So I don't expect you guys to be experts at branching right now, but let's learn the basics now so that the next bunch of the videos, we can get into the flow of knowing when and how to branch, and then when and how to merge. There is no limit to the number of branches that you can create. This is very much just a tool for you to manage your code and the versions of your project. So branch when you want, branch when you need to. The purpose here is for you to be more productive when you're writing and building new features.
Welcome back, everyone. We are again here in our source control project. We made a lot of commits so far in this project. We started with some basic commits, and then we moved to some better commits. Then we talked a little bit about staging and unstaging. We talked about stashing and pushing and pulling. And in the last video, we actually did one pull where it actually automatically merged changes because we were out of date, we were out of sync with the remote repo. And when we pulled it, it merged a version for us, and then we pushed that version to the remote repo. I want you guys to ignore that the colors have changed here because I just have multiple GitHub accounts. That's why these icons look different. Yours probably look the same. If you're working in a project with other people, every person's little icon will be different. So you'll be able to very easily tell who did which commit. In this video, we're going to look at branching. And so branching is exactly what it sounds like. You can branch off of the main.
I wonder what I'm going to make my icon. In Swift, I have it as a Spider-Man, LOL. But like my Swift... I do like the Swift icon. But I need something more unique. My own.
Branch. So again, I'm going to pull up this diagram here. Master is main. It's called main now. Some people used to call it master. But the main branch is green. And so right now, just pretend like all of these commits don't exist. And we're just on this initial commit here. This one master branch.
Dust. That's
where we're at here. The main. We're at the main point of the main branch. The main branch is going to be literally our master branch. This is where everything that is pushed to production wants to be. It's going to be our master source of truth. So most of the time when we're writing code, we do not commit to the master or main branch directly. So far, all of these commits have been into our main branch. And I think if you're just starting, if you're doing your own project, you can commit to main. That's totally fine. But in a bigger app, a production app or a bigger team, you're going to have a main branch, and then you're going to have other side branches. And people are going to do their personal work on the side branches. And then when it's ready to go, we'll merge it into the main branch or a release branch. So most of the time, you're not actually working on the main branch. You're working in another branch. And then eventually, when it's finalized, when it goes to the users, we'll merge it into the main branch. We're going to talk a lot more about this when we get into Git flow towards the end of this playlist. But for right now, I just want you guys to understand that there are branches. There's a master or a main branch. But most of the time, what's going to happen is we're going to branch. Then we're going to do all of our work over here. And then when we're done, we're going to merge that back into the main branch. So that's how it works. So let's start by just creating our first branch. I'm going to go into Xcode. Let's do an Xcode first. So right now I can see that I'm on the main branch. You can see it right here. And what I can do is I can go to the main branch, I can click this dot, 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 and I can create a new branch from the main branch. So literally just like we saw in the diagram, we're going to create a branch. It's exactly what we're doing in Xcode. We can also go to the source control navigator, right click on the main, and new branch. We're creating a new branch. Now there are naming conventions that go into creating a new branch, but for right now, I'm just going to call this my second branch. When I name branches, I generally don't want to do spacing in here. I don't want special characters in here. Let's just keep this simple. So let's just keep it simple. So right now, my second branch, that's fine. We're going to talk about naming conventions in a second. So let's create this branch. And now I can see here, well, this is not updated. Hold on. Let's switch to this branch. I should already be on it. I don't know why I didn't. Xcode source control can get a little funky sometimes, but I'm now on my second branch. This is the current branch that we were on, not the main branch. And I can see up here my second branch. So I know exactly the branch that I'm on. And when I click between these, I can see they actually have the same exact commit history because it's the same thing right now. I didn't actually add anything to the second branch that's not on the main branch. When I look at Git cracking, I can see this as well. I can see main branch as well as my second branch. And you're going to notice that there's a little icon for my GitHub account on the main branch and not on my second branch. So what that's telling me is that my second branch right now is local only, and it is not remote. If I look at the remote repo down here, I can see the main branch is there, but there is no my second branch. So my second branch must clearly be local only. So oftentimes, as soon as I create a branch, I also want to just push it up to GitHub. So let's tell the remote repo that we now have a second branch and that this does exist. So while we're on my second branch, let's push it up to the remote repo. You're going to see here it actually says create. It literally knows this branch is not in the remote repo, and it's going to have to create it at this time. So let's go ahead and push that up. Let's look at GitKraken, and we can see both are now on both local and remote. You can also see it over here on my remote also now has my second branch. So if I open up GitHub again, I go back to my repo here, I should be able to actually see
the photo.
2 branches. So there's 2 branches in this file, the main branch as well as my second branch. So I can click this here, or I can click and look at all the branches. This is a nice view because this tells us the active branches, because sometimes there's stale branches. Imagine you made a branch, forgot about it, you forgot about this project, nobody touched this branch in 8 months. Well, it still exists, but it's now stale. This is a nice little tab of, if you have a large project with a lot of team members, you can come in here and you can see what are the active branches. You can see who is actually working on these branches. So you can see, okay, here's the 5 branches that this person's working on, and this person's working on, and this person's working on. And then you can see how far ahead or behind are they from the main branch. So we can see right now my second branch is in line with the main branch because it's not ahead or behind at all. Let's jump into Xcode. Let's do some work on my second branch. I'm gonna come down here and let's say subscribe now. Let's Option Command C. And I want to call this a feature. Let's say subscribe now added back. And let's stage it. Let's commit it. And now I can see that we've committed this to my second branch. So my second branch has 1 commit in it. Let's do one more. Let's come back into here. Let's delete this. Let's make this Swiftful Thinking again. Let's again do a feature and say Swiftful Thinking text updated. I can see the uncommitted changes in my source control on this branch. I can stage it. I can commit it. I can see there's now 2 commits on this branch. So I can see here that my second branch is 2 commits ahead of my second branch in the remote version. So if I look here, I can see not only is main here, but the remote version of my second branch is still down here because we haven't pushed it up to GitHub. So this is actually 2 commits ahead of the remote version of my second branch. Okay. So when I'm looking at GitHub here, my second branch, this is not the same ahead or behind as this. So this is my second branch relating to my remote second branch. For example, let's take this and let's push it up to GitHub. Push. My second branch now is in line, not with main, but it's in line with the remote version of my second branch. I can see that here, right? Both it's local and it's remote at this level. If I look at GitHub and I refresh this, I can see that my second branch is 2 commits ahead, not of my second branch, but of main. So this is now 2 commits ahead of the main branch. And this is really helpful because you can see roughly, is this branch in front or behind? Is it really old? Is it really new? Let's jump back into Xcode. All right, so this is generally the workflow. It's right, I branch off of the main, I'm gonna do some work, and then eventually I'm ready to merge this work back into the main branch. But what's cool, while I have these 2 branches created, I can switch between them. So I can actually, in GitKraken, I can just double click on main here and switch to the main branch. I'm gonna double click and switch back. I can also in Xcode just right click and switch. If you're on an old version of Xcode, this is actually called checkout. This is actually checking out the other branch. Think about it like checkout at a grocery store, but we're gonna switch to the main branch and let's switch. And I can see here, now I'm on the main branch. I'm gonna switch back to my second branch. Let's switch back. And now this time what I'm gonna do is actually, let's write some code here. So maybe I want to add another rectangle. And let's just pretend, for example's sake, my manager comes in and says, hey, Nick, stop what you're doing. I need you to go look at the code that's in production and tell me how this analytic works. What does this code do? Or what does that function do? So for example's sake, I want to see the version that is on the main branch, right? So I want to switch to the main branch to see that code. But when I go to switch, I'm going to get this other message here, stash changes. And this is why I covered stash changes first, because we can't switch from our branch to the other branch if we have outstanding changes. Because it needs to know, what are you going to do with these changes? Do I discard them forever? Do I stash them somewhere? So I can now stash these changes and then switch, or I can discard these changes and then switch, or I can let Xcode do it for me. I can just right click and switch. And when it asks me, I'll just put here, adding second rectangle, and stash and switch at the same time. So now it's created my stash for me, and it switched me onto the main branch. So now when I go back to my second branch, let's switch back. I can now apply my stash, apply stash changes. I don't need this stash, I'm gonna delete it after, so let's just apply. Cool, now we're back to where we were.
Go back to the...
One more time, I'm gonna do it on GitKraken. And so now I have that change, I'm gonna switch to main.
Oh, whoops, my keyboard is disconnected, I just realized.
At the same time. So now, and when it asks me, I'll just put here, adding second rectangle, and stash and switch at the same time. So now it's created my stash for me, and it switched me onto the main branch. So now when I go back to my second branch, let's switch back. I can now apply my stash, apply stash changes. I don't need this stash, I'm gonna delete it after, so let's just apply. Cool, now we're back to where we were. One more time, I'm gonna do it on GitKraken. And so now I have that change, I'm gonna switch to main, and it doesn't let me, it says stash or commit your changes first. It's exactly what we just talked about. So let's stash our changes, stash them here, and then let's switch branches, and now we are switched. And we can see here that that stash was added back up here, right? Again, let's just go back in here and let's switch back to my second branch. So we learned about creating branches and switching branches, and then we're gonna wrap up this video with some light merging. So after I've made all of my progress on this branch, maybe I'm building a new feature, maybe I'm just doing something else, I'm now ready to merge this back into the main repo. Because chances are...
Oh my god, my BRB is still up. My sister just messaged me about that. Whoops. That's better.
all of the
Jesus.
developers on my team are working off this same base main case.
Thanks,
But
Lisa.
the other devs on my team have no idea what I'm doing in this branch. They
My
can see
bad.
my commits, but they're not building this feature. They're probably on their own branches and doing their own work. And so at some point, we're going to have to merge all of our changes together to a final product. So I want to merge my second branch into the main branch. I'm gonna go back to Xcode. While I'm on my second branch, I'm gonna right click and I'm going to click merge. I could also come up here, I can click main, and then I can go to merge, and I can go here, and I can click, this is actually not what we want. This is the reverse. So this is merging main into my second branch. We want to merge my second branch into main. So merge main into my second branch is actually incorrect. Let's check out the main branch. And I want to merge my second branch into main. Again, when I look at our diagram, that diagram that I have here,
He almost
right now we're over here. And we're trying to merge it into the main branch.
mega mistake.
So it's not that we want the main branch to come over here. We want here to come into the main. So let's go and do one real quick. Let's right click, merge my second branch into main. Are you sure you want to merge? Changes will be merged, merge. Boom. All right, and just like that, my second branch is now merged into main. I can see it better in GitKraken. I can see main is now up here. So I've taken these commits and I've put them onto the local version of the main branch. Now again, let's recognize that main locally versus main remotely. So we merged them locally, but not
Then you
remotely.
gotta
And that's why main
push.
is now 2 commits ahead of the remote repo. So let's make sure every time we're doing these things that we actually push it, integrate, and push it up to GitHub so that we keep our GitHub in line as well. So now we're all back up here. Generally speaking, after you merge, you don't really need that branch anymore, so you can delete it. So in GitKraken, I can just delete my second branch and origin my second branch. So the difference here is origin is the remote version and this original non-origin is the local version. So I can delete the branch locally and remotely or one or the other. And in Xcode, I don't need it anymore. I'm just going to right click and delete this branch. And do you want to delete the branch? It will be removed from the repo, delete. Cool. Let's also delete the stash because we don't need that anymore. Clean up our source control a little bit. And now we're back to just having a main branch. You will notice though that
What? Oh my god.
Xcode did not delete the remote branch. So eventually we'll want to open up GitHub and go into our branches and then delete the branch. So a lot of the time you're going to do merges in GitHub itself. So you'll be able to delete that branch automatically when you merge through GitHub. The reason for that is because a lot of merges are going to require pull requests. But we're going to cover pull requests in a future video. It needs its own video. So we're going to work on doing that in a future video. Right now, let's just talk about branching and merging, keeping it simple. We've branched and then we merged. And now that we've deleted that branch, let's pull updates in case there are any updates. And it looks like we need to still somehow delete the origin version. And we're back to our clean source control project here. So you'll notice that even though we branched and then merged it, I actually don't even see that branch anymore. And so I want to point out here that when we merged this, we added those commits, these 2 commits, to our main branch history. So we can't even see that there was a branch here anymore. That branch has disappeared. All we see is the commits that are left over from that merge. And again, this is why commits start to get important, because if you're merging into main or you're merging into other people's branches, these are going to appear into the same history that they are now seeing. It's not going to look like dev branch. It's going to look like commit, commit, commit. So it's obviously important that we write good commit messages. Let's get some practice in it. Let's create a couple branches here. So I can actually right click and create branches in GitKraken itself. But generally, I do these through Xcode. So right now in Xcode, I'm on the main branch. Let's right click and create a new branch. So I'm going to pretend like I'm going to add a new screen here. So let's call this one feature add. Let's call this add explore view. Let's go ahead and click create on that. We have a new branch and let's add it, right? Let's open up, let's right click, create a new file, SwiftUI view. Let's call this explore view, click create. And in here, let's now just option command. Let's make it a feature and say add explore view. Let's stage that change. Let's commit that change. I can see that change here in GitKraken. It's not pushed to the remote. So let's make sure that we push it to the remote repo. Add feature. Cool. So we have this branch. We added the new explore view. I can see it here. It is pushed to the remote repo. But maybe your product manager comes in and says, hey, Nick, I know you're working on the explore view right now, but actually we need you to switch to the main branch and add some analytics for something else. And that's a higher priority. We want to stop what we're doing and do that. All right, well, I don't want to delete this. I'm going to want to come back to this. So let's switch to the main branch. Come back in Xcode. Let's switch to the main branch. All right, I'm on the main branch now. From the main branch, let's make another branch and let's say add, not new is not a good descriptive word, add home analytics, let's say. Let's click create. Now again, this is locally only and it's not remote. So let's make sure that we integrate and push it up to the remote repo. Let's create it on the remote repo. I can now see it in GitKraken as well. I can see the remote repo here. And let's go ahead and add those analytics. So I'm just going to go to the home view and let's just say maybe up here and let's analytics. I'm not gonna actually do it, but let's option command C and then let's say feature, add home analytics. Stage it, commit it, push it up to the remote repo. Your manager comes in and says, hey Nick, I know you're adding those analytics. Turns out there's actually a crash in the app. We need to fix that real quick. All right, let me go to the main version of my app, switch back to main. There's a crash. Where's the crash? Crash is on the content view. Okay, it looks like I need to change, this. Let's right click, create a new branch. Let's say fix user subscribe crash. I don't know what the crash is. I'm just making this up, guys. From here, let's make sure that we're pushing this to the remote repo. Let's integrate and push. You don't always have to push it remotely. I like to just because I have a second backup. And now let's fix our code. Let's take this out maybe. Let's fix it. We're fixing something that's live in production. So let's say patch, let's say fix subscribe button. This is not actually a crash, obviously, but we're mocking it up. Let's push it to the remote repo. And so let's jump back into GitKraken. And this again is why I start to really like GitKraken, because you can literally see in different colors the different branches. And when you get into really complex repos with lots of other people, you can see everyone's username, you can see all the branches. The branches are color coded. And so it gets really helpful. Versus in Xcode, this is what we have. And we can see the changes, we can see the different branches, but it's really hard to see at a high level the timeline of these branches. If they were out of date with the remote, we would have those little numbers here, but even that's not really telling us that much. Anyway, we now have a bunch of different branches, and let's get some practice merging them in. So switch back to main. I'm on the main branch now. Let's first merge in our subscribe branch. So let's right click and merge fix user crash into main. Hopefully it works. Add subscribe button is now in this commit history. And let's also do it for the analytics. Let's say merge analytics into main and merge that. Cool. Let's check it out. It worked. Let's push main back up to GitHub because now these changes, these merges have not been pushed to GitHub yet. So I can see here, this is where my main branch is. And I can see that home analytics is merged into the main branch. I can also see that fix user crash is in the history of the main branch, right? It looks a little different because it doesn't have this curve in it, but this was merged as well as this was merged. The order that this is in is based on chronological order. So if you look at the timeline of the main branch, right, it's this commit, this commit. This one was created at this time, but then this one was created after that. And we merged this one first into the main branch, and this one merged second to the main branch. Anyway, let's push that up to GitHub so we have that remotely. And while we do that, we don't need these other two anymore. So I'm going to delete both of the ones that I've merged. Let's right click and delete the local and the remote version. Same thing for the analytics. Cool. We still have this version that we haven't added, add Explore View. So again, this is another example of Xcode did not update with the updates we just made to get cracking. I'm going to close Xcode. I'm going to restart it real quick. Hopefully the source control refreshes now, and we have just the add Explore View on this screen here. There's a couple more things we're going to do before we end up this video. Firstly is we just created a couple branches, but you notice that those branches were all just listed out here. There was the main branch, there was the feature branch, but you can imagine if you have 50 engineers on the team, everyone's creating their own branches. And you can imagine that even just you are going to create more than one branch. For every feature I add, I'm going to create a new branch. For every bug I fix, I'm going to create a new branch. For every X, I'm going to create a new branch. So each person could have a lot of branches. So a lot of teams, especially larger teams, what they'll do is when you create a branch, you'll actually add in here a folder name. So I'm going to use my initials. A lot of teams will use their initials, NS. Let's call this add some feature and click create. So now all the branches of NS are going to be in this NS folder. So it's no different than making a regular branch. It doesn't look different in source control, but in Xcode, it helps to keep the branches organized by developer. So large teams everyone will have their own initials here, and then all of your branches will be in your little folder. For example, let's create another one. And this time I'm even going to branch off of add some feature. Let's create a new branch.
But
again,
at that point, would you even see, like it's your Xcode, would you even see other people's thing in here? Maybe you would in the remotes, I don't know.
A second, let's call this my second feature. I like to use underscores here. You can name these however you want. I would avoid special characters and spaces. Click create. So now you can see that all of my branches are in the same folder. So this is how a lot of teams will do it, especially if developers are working independently. If I'm working on these, I can see my branches here. If somebody else is working, they'll have their own branch with their own folder and their own branches in it. But then there's other times where maybe a bunch of developers are working on the same feature. So maybe it's not that I'm working on my own branch. It's that 5 devs are working on the same feature. So when we go to create that one, let's create that one. We'll use a folder called features and then feature or features. And then we'll just say some new feature and click create. So now everything for feature development will go into this folder. And let's create another one here. Let's say branch, new branch, and then we'll say releases. Let's say release maybe 1.0.0. We're going to cover releases in a future video. We're not actually doing it. But anytime I make a branch that I'm going to then release, I can put that in the releases folder. So I can kind of start to organize my branches as well. So some teams will do the developer initials. Some teams will do it by features. I could even make sub branches of this. I could say here, so maybe I make a new branch. Let's branch off current. And let's say feature / let's call it new onboarding flow / add first screen. Great. So now I have a feature folder where I'm going to put all of my features. Inside that will be a folder for each feature. So onboarding will be a feature, and then all the branches relating to new onboarding will be in this folder. So again, it does not matter how you want to structure your folders. What's important is that you're staying organized, because the larger your team gets, the more branches there's going to be, the more structure you're going to need to have. And a lot of bigger teams are going to have, again, a methodology. Just like
I don't have a team.
These commit messages, teams will have rules for how and when you should branch. All right, go back to get cracking. I can see all of these are in line. I actually don't need any of these. So what I'm going to do is just delete them all. Let's switch back to the main branch. Let's add first screen. Let's delete that one. Add Explore View. Let's delete that one. Feature, some new feature. We don't need. Delete that. And the NS, add some feature. Let's delete that. My second feature, let's also delete. And then lastly, the releases, we're just going to delete here. Again, we're going to talk about releases in a future video. So I want to delete these, but I actually can't right now. I'm going to restart Xcode. Maybe that will solve. If I restart Xcode and open back up repos, yeah, those folders are gone. We did not delete feature and Explore View from the remote repo, so let's also go ahead and delete that. So it's deleted from the remote repo. It looks like it deleted, but it looks like Xcode did not update. From time to time, Xcode does get buggy, so we can either restart Xcode or you can click refresh file status, and that should update your code. I'm back now on the main branch. So in this video, we learned about branching and we learned about merging, but we didn't have any merge conflicts. So you can imagine a situation where you try to merge and then it conflicts with other changes that have already been committed. So there's a whole realm that we need to discuss about conflicts. So all of these have no conflicts. They're very easy to merge. But in the next video, we're going to take us to the next level and talk about some of those conflicts.
Damn.
Thank you guys for watching.
Okay.
As always, my name
Took in a lot of information at 1.75 times speed. Woo! Woo! All right. Well, it's time for a break for me because I need to eat and I need to go look at a couple cars today because I'm trying to get a freaking car, man. Holy brother. It takes up so much time to find a car. Ugh. It's so annoying. Damn it. Jesus. All right, well, look, thank you so much, Enigmatic. I don't know if you're still here, but thank you so much for coming in. Throwing in some support. Much appreciated. And whoever else joined in, thank you so much. I will. Tomorrow is Friday, so I actually won't be on. I might be doing some study of my own, but tomorrow's generally my day off, at least from streaming. I don't know. I might be working Uber tomorrow night anyway, so just because there's a, they always give bonuses for Friday night, Saturday night, so we'll see. I'm doing Uber tonight as well. Oh man, I wish I could quit Uber, but not that I don't like it. I just love doing this way more. So I wish I could just spend more time focusing on this. We're almost there. We are seriously almost there. We only need, let's calculate. We only need, I think, 59. Yeah, 59 subscribers more. That is absolutely insane from where I was like a couple weeks ago. So it's seriously awesome how close I am to that monetization level where I can get some AdSense. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, but yeah, I'm just gonna continue this as much as possible, go as fast as I can. I've actually got a new plan from AI. I sorted out like what skills I actually have, and what I still need to learn to get a job, and I have a plan to learn within a month, what or the remaining things that I need to focus on, and I should be pretty fine in terms of getting a job or being able to apply in 1 month. As long as I have to build a couple projects for my portfolio, and I'll finish off the stretch one. That'll be one, and then there's 3 others I want to build alongside of a new endeavor that I'm actually starting with my friend. So there'll be more information on that coming soon. Yeah, and I roughly only need to do like 2 to 5 hours a day of studying, so that's 100% manageable. And that's it. So I'm gonna head off, and I'll see y'all Saturday morning. I'll be on. Bye bye.